Salesmanship. The personal selling and salesmanship are often used interchangeably, but there is an important difference. Personal selling is the broader concept. Salesmanship may or may not be important part of personal selling, and it is never all of it. Along with other key marketing elements such as pricing, advertising, product development and research, marketing channels, and physical distribution. The personal selling is a means through which marketing programs are implemented. The broad purpose of marketing is to bring firms' products into contact with markets and to effect profitable exchanges of product for money. The purpose of personal selling is to bring the right products into contact with the right customers and make ownership transfer. Sale is the pinnacle activity involved in selling products or service in return for money or other compensation. It is an act of completion of a commercial activity. The deal is closed. Means the customer has consented to the proposed product or service by making full or partial payment in case of installments to the seller. Sale is completed by the seller. The owner of the goods starts with consent or agreement to an acquisition or appropriation or request, followed by the passing of little property or ownership in the item and the application and just settlement of a price. The obligation for which arises due to the seller's requirement to pass ownership. Being a price, the seller is happy to part with ownership or of any claim upon the item. The purchaser, through a party to the sale, does not execute the sale. The seller does that. To be precise, the sale completes prior to the payment and gives rise to the obligation of payment. If the seller completes the first two above stages, consent and passing ownership of the sale prior to settlement of the price, the sale is still valid and gives rise to an obligation to pay. Sales management trends, from transactions to relationships, from individuals to teams, from sales volume to sales productivity, from management to leadership, from local to global. Marketing and sales are very different but have the same goal. Marketing improves the selling environment and plays a very important role in sales. If the marketing department generates a potential customer list, it can be beneficial for sales. The marketing department's goal is to increase the number of interaction between potential customers and the sales team using promotional techniques such as advertising, sales promotion, publicity, and public relations, creating new sales channels, or creating new products, new product development, among other things. In most large corporations, the marketing department is structured in a similar fashion to the sales department, and the managers of these teams must coordinate efforts in the order to drive profits and business success. For example, an inbound focused campaign seeks to drive more customers through the door, giving the sales department a better chance to selling their product to the customer. A good marketing program would address any potential downsides as well. The sales department goal would be improve the interaction between the customer and the sales facility or mechanism. Example, website and or salesperson. Sales management would break down the selling process and then increase the effectiveness of the discrete process as well as the interaction between processes. For example, in many outbound sales environments, the typical process is outbound calling, the sales pitch, handling objections, opportunity identification, and the close. Each step of the processes has sales-related issues, skills, and training needs as well as marketing solutions to improve each discrete steps as well as the whole process. The further common complication of marketing involves the inability to measure results for a great deal of marketing initiatives. In essence, many marketing and advertising executives often lose sight of the objective of sale, revenue, profit as they focus on establishing a create, innovative program without concern for the top or bottom lines. Such is a fundamental pitfall of marketing for marketing's sake. Many companies find it challenging to get marketing and sales on the same page. Both departments are different in nature but handle very similar concepts and have to work together for sales to be successful. Building a good relationship between the two and encourages communication can be the key to success even in a down economy. Some sales authors and consultants contend that an expertly planned and executed marketing strategy may negate the need for outside sales entirely. They suggest that by effectively bringing more customers through the door and enticing them to contact you, sales organization can dramatically improve their results, efficiency, profitability, and allow salespeople to provide a drastically higher level of customer service and satisfaction. Instead of spending the majority of their working hours searching for someone to sell. While this theory is present in a few marketing consulting companies, the practical and realistic application of this principle has not been widely proven in the market, and sales forces worldwide continue to be responsible for developing business as well as closing it. Some marketing consulting firms postulate that each selling opportunity at each enterprise lies on a continuum of numbers of people involved, necessary degree of face-to-face interaction, overhead and throughput time to name a few dimensions. The number of people involved in actual face-to-face selling at, say, a clothing store is probably vastly different than at an online bookseller. Another key area of conversation that has arisen is the need for alignment and integration between corporate sales and marketing functions. According to our report from the Chief Marketing Officer CMO Council, only 40% of companies have formal programs, systems, or processes in place to align and integration between the two critical functions. Traditionally, these two functions, as referenced above, has been largely segmented and left in solo areas of tactical responsibility. Internet applications, commonly referred to as sales 2.0 tools, have also increasingly been created to help align the goals and responsibilities for marketing and sales departments. To make effective sales salesmen must have certain desirable attributes and drive, which is known as salesmanship. Basically, salesmanship is the knack of selling a product or service. Salesmanship is an important method of selling. It is the process of assisting and persuading a prospective buyer to buy a product in a face-to-face situation. It involves direct and personal contact between the seller and his representative with the prospective buyer. It provides feedback and performs the complete job of selling. Salesmanship today covers a wide range of activities and constitutes an integral part of management. It also offers wide scope to develop in future. In fact, modern salesmanship is growing on scientific lines. By day, time is not far when a salesmanship will be an position to dictate to the producers of goods and services what, when, and how much to produce for sale in the market. This lesson will help you to understand meaning of salesmanship, its future importance and scope. Personal selling. Personal selling is a promotional method in which one party salesperson uses skills and techniques for building personal relationships with another party, those involved in a purchase decision, that results in both parties obtaining value. In most cases, the value for the salesperson is realized through the financial rewards of the sale, while the customer's value is realized from the benefits obtained by consuming the product. However, getting a customer to purchase a product is not always the objective of personal selling. For instance, selling may be used for the purpose of simply delivering information. Because selling involves personal contact, this promotional method often occurs through face-to-face meetings or via a telephone conversation. Through newer technologies allow contact to take place over the internet, including using video conferencing or text messaging. Personal selling concept. It's a part of product mix. It's a personal face-to-face telephone or internet chat presentation for the purpose of making sales and building relationships. Oral presentation, salesmanship, perceive and persuade buyers. The effort of sales people go far beyond simply making transactions. They also include planning product benefits, demonstrating the proper operation of the product, educating customers about the new product, answering questions and responding to the objections, organizing and implementing point of purchase promotion, arranging the terms of purchase, following up the purchase to ensure the customers are satisfied, developing the relationship with the buyer, collecting market and competitive information to improve marketing strategies. Personal selling is mostly used when the market is concentrated either geographically in a few industries or a few large customers. The product has a high unit value, quite technical in nature, or requires demonstration. The product must be fitted to the individual customer needs, as in case of insurance or investments. The product is the introductory stage of its life cycle. The organization does not have enough money for adequate advertising. Personal salesmanship features. More specific communication aimed at one or more persons. Effective at buyers' references, convictions, and actions. cost per person is high and is the most expensive promotional tool. Greater impact on the consumers. Provide immediate feedback. Allow the marketer to adjust message quickly to improve communication. Buyer feels a great need to listen and respond. Long-term commitments is needed to develop a sales force. Advantage of personal selling. Personal selling is a face-to-face activity. Customers therefore obtain a relatively high degree of personal attention. The sales message can be customized to meet the needs of the customer. The two-way nature of sales process allows the sales team to respond directly and promptly to the customer's questions and concerns. Personal selling is a good way of getting across large amount of technical or either complex production information. Frequent meetings between the sales force and the customers provide an opportunity to build good long-term relationship. Fundamentals of successful personal selling. Salespeople must have credibility. He must tailor sales presentations to fit the needs and behavior of the individual customers. He must have potential of explaining the product benefits, answers questions of his customers. He must be truthful. He must behave in a reliable manner. Must seek similarity of personality between you and customers and the commodity interests and goals. Salesperson must see whether the person or his prospect has the potential to pay for the product or not. Scope of salesmanship. Salesmanship has become an indispensable part of business activity. Today, everybody is a seller, selling something or the other. It has been rightly pointed out that sales are the lifeblood of business. The job of today's salesman is not confined to selling consumer goods. He also has to sell industrial and agricultural goods and services like transport, repairing, teaching, painting, banking, legal consultancy, medicine, insurance, and so on. Thus, the scope of salesmanship is vast and varied. With the advancement of science and technology, the scope of salesmanship has become ultimated. It is a skill which is essential in every sphere of human activity. Every one of us, in one sense or the other, is a salesman. The job of a lawyer pleading is his case, a teacher teaching his ideas, an applicant applying for a job resembles the job of a salesman. In each of these cases, skill and ability of salesman is very much necessary in order to be successful. Thus, we observe that the skill of salesmanship is not restricted to selling goods and services, but it's applicable in several other fields. A modern salesman occupies a pivotal position in the structure of an organization. Modern sales managers take decisions about recruitment, selection, training, and controlling of sales force. Similarly, the activities of production and sales are also considerably regulated by the sales manager of an organization. Salesmanship today covers a wide range of activities and constitutes an integral part of management. It also offers wide scope for development in future. In fact, modern salesmanship is going on scientific lines day by day. Time is not far when salesmanship will be in a position to dictate to the producers of goods and services what, when, and how much to produce for sale in the market. The scope of the salesman's activities will, of course, depend to a considerable extent upon the line he is selling and the channels of distribution used. However, it is possible to present an outline, part or all of which will apply to the average salesman. First and foremost, his main activity is to sell an adequate volume at satisfactory profit. As a matter of fact, all of the rest of the rather wide range of his activities should and thus contribute in one way to another, directly or indirectly, to this main objective. This will be found to require a working knowledge of his industry, a fairly definite knowledge of this company, its history and its organization, and even more detailed acquaintance with his sales department and its every activity, and a most thorough knowledge of the product or offering to be sold and how best to sell it. He must study his territory, analyze it and know it thoroughly, organize it, build a list of prospects in it on which he can keep profitably busy, and create in a personal goodwill for himself and business goodwill towards his company. His is the duty of cooperating with the credit manager through his intimate knowledge of local conditions and detailed knowledge of the individual customer. Many times, of course, he must lend personal assistance in the collection of accounts. He will also, whenever possible, cooperate with the production end of the business by reporting the reaction up on the trade and upon the consuming public of the company's conduct and production policy, and let the home office know of competing articles and the reception accorded them. He will cooperate with the advertising manager by coordinating his activities with the general marketing and advertising plan, sell his company's advertising policies to the customers, assist him in availing himself of advertising, helps and encourage him in every way to tie in with the company's advertising. It is not at all unusual today for a salesman actually to sell the customer the entire marketing and advertising plan rather than the goods alone. Likewise, he is responsible for carrying out, so far as his territory is concerned, the instructions, policies, and ideas of the sales manager. One of his most important duties frequently will be to assist his customer to constructive suggestion and assistance in stock display, improve merchandising methods, advertising, and window trim, as well as by instruction and suggestion to clerks to move the goods he has sold. For it is generally understood today that goods are not truly sold when they are placed upon the shelves of the dealer. They are not really sold until they have moved off the shelves of the dealer into the hands of the final consumer. For then and only then can a new order find its way back through the channels or trade. In addition, the salesman must present a detailed report of his daily activities and any changes in the trade conditions, and should take a personal pride in submitting any personal sales methods which have been effective with him and which he believes will be helpful to other men in the sales organization. He has a moral obligation constantly to improve his salesmanship by reading and study, consulting the latest books, and keeping in the close touch with his trade journals. In the foregoing outline, we have assumed a salesman selling to the trade. Some of these activities will not apply to the specialty salesman who sells to users or consumers, but some of these duties devolve upon all salesmen, and the principle involved thorough preparedness from every angle applies to all. It will be seen that the scope of personal salesmanship is a broad one. Selling ability is not inherent. Businessmen had been arguing that salesmanship cannot be taught. It must be born in a man. As he talked, he had between watching one of his men is in the front part of his store demonstrate a mechanical device. When the customer had gone, he stepped quickly forward. "Bill," said he, "I noticed that you did all the demonstrating and all the talking. Why didn't you let your prospect handle to the machine, operate it? By doing that, you would have held his interest and created in him a desire to own the machine. Instead of that, he walked out on you." He had laid down a definite principle of salesmanship. He had endeavored to do that which he had just finished stating could not be done. Teach salesmanship. This illustrates how little thought a man is giving to the subject when he says that salesmen are born and not made. Art of science, the art of salesmanship. As art is a science applied, it involves actual doing. It is the practical application of knowledge or natural ability. One might have a broad knowledge of the science of medicine and possesses or develop but different ability in applying it. It may be said, speaking generally, that knowledge of a science is gained by study, proficiency in an art by practice. Knowledge of selling principles alone is not sufficient. Actual practice in their application is necessary, but knowledge of principles will enable one to get his selling ability into action more quickly and make of him a better salesman than he otherwise could hope to be. The art of salesmanship may be defined as the ability to apply fundamental selling principles to the circumstances of the individual selling situation. The science of salesmanship. Selling is definitely an art, but art is an applied science. It is the practical application of knowledge or natural ability. It is possible to make a study of the sales process and the experience and methods of successful salesmen. Because of the many immeasurable human elements involved, it will always remain, to some degree, an inexact science. Mathematics, physics, chemistry are regarded as science. Salesmanship may also be considered as science on the basis that salesmanship is a specialized knowledge that has its own standards, principles, and theories. It has already developed as systematized knowledge of its own like the other subjects of science. However, these rules and principles cannot be applied to each and everyone in the world, since all human beings are not equal. No doubt, although a majority of the customers can be convinced that by a particular line of approach and behavior of the salesman, the same cannot be applied to all customers, and it may not be successful in each and every case. This is so because the process of handling customers can never be reduced to unchangeable laws and rigid principles. Thus, salesmanship is not exact science like physics or mathematics. It is science based on human psychology. It can be considered as science like sociology or economics. Therefore, the term salesmanship includes both knowledge of fundamental selling principles and the ability to apply them in the actual making of sales.